Video recording.
Greetings, mortals. Welcome to Tabletop Sandbox. Today, I'm going to read and react to D&D stories on Reddit, and then provide unsolicited advice. Let's jump right into this. My character sorta got eaten by another PC. Gross. What I was about to do, not the story. Maybe the story too. All right. They do give a warning that this is not a horror story, so shouldn't be any trigger warnings involved. This is a campaign. This is all background. I don't need to know this. The party. Let's meet the party. OP's human warlock and the daughter of an evil goddess who is their patron. A Goliath fighter / warlock who hunts a cult that follows the evil gods with a tragic backstory involving their son being sacrificed, a satyr wizard, a human druid, and an Earth Genasi fighter / barbarian. That feels a little redundant to do stack two martial classes like that, but hey, if you want to rage tactically, I guess. So the fighter warlock, we'll call him Eye Patch. He had an eye patch. Thank you for that. Underneath it was a tentacle that could eat some stuff and send it to the domain of his warlock patron, where the items or people would be judged by his patron. We always say that he, quote, consumes things, which sounds somewhat funny in Dutch. Well, apparently they're Dutch. His patron was against the same evil gods as Eye Patch. Wait, what? Whose patron is? After a bit, my character revealed that she was the daughter of the goddess of lies, which upset Eye Patch, understandably, as he was against the evil gods. What a bold stance to take. His player said something along the lines of, "My character kind of wants to consume your character." Dangerous territory. At first, I didn't think much of it until my DM said that were I to be consumed, that my character would not be out of the campaign, but an NPC. I presumed that would mean villain arc, and I was tired of playing Warlock. The limited spell slots are not my thing. That is pretty much, yeah, that's a major downside to being a Warlock. So I told Eye Patch that he had my permission to consume my character. I mean, consent is important. The next session went about as you would expect. In the night, Eye Patch cast silence, making me unable to cast spells. Then he grappled me, held me so that his eye tentacle could inspect me. This is... alright. I responded by entering my owl familiar senses and attacking the tentacle. Eventually, I switched tactics, instead entering the Leomund's tiny hut that the wizard had made to wake the wizard, who was the only one who slept inside it for some odd reason. I don't quite remember what the druid and barbarian were doing at this point. I think they were simply out of range to do anything in time, and the druid couldn't cast a spell to help because of the silence. Anyway, my owl familiar vanished inside the tiny hut as my character got consumed by Eye Patch. The wizard exited, saw what was going on, and immediately dimension doored himself and Eye Patch out of there. Earlier in the campaign, they had made a deal that were the tentacle situation to be revealed, the wizard would stay on Eye Patch's side. So he decided to protect Eye Patch from the druid and barbarian. A bit of angry talking ensued. That's such a funny phrase. I assured the druid and the barbarian that I had agreed to Eye Patch consuming me, and my new character, a halfling phantom rogue, came running down the mountain path not a half hour later. I had anticipated that I would die that session, so my new character was already completely ready. That's preparedness, and I'm here for it. Unfortunately, the event did kind of split the party into two camps, with the wizard and Eye Patch standing their ground and saying that Eye Patch's patron would judge my character and would only harm her if she actually had evil intentions. Hard to imagine that somebody worshipping an evil god would have any sort of ill intentions. And the druid and barbarian not agreeing to this, so they split. The rest of the campaign didn't go as smoothly as you might imagine. We are now in our second campaign arc. Druid, barbarian, and me made new characters, and Eye Patch and the wizard kept their old ones. So the in-character disagreement vanished with the old characters of the druid and barbarian. Hey, you know what? Excellently handled by everyone involved. Discussing it beforehand, that's awesome. And then just picking characters that could actually work together, that is the ideal way to go about this sort of thing. And handled very well. Also very fun. Very fun thing to say that my character was consumed by another party member's eye tentacle and sent to be judged by their god. Final thoughts? Just excellent word choice in here. Because they say consumed sounds funny in Dutch, but it's also, well, I don't know if funny is the right word, but it certainly gets a reaction in English. All right, let's get into another one of these. As a DM, is it unreasonable for me to ask players to roll their stats in front of me? Initial reaction, no, not at all. It might illustrate a little bit of mistrust, but if your players take it as that and are like have a problem with that, then they're probably the people you're supposed to mistrust. If you're all there to have a good time and the DM just wants everybody to be fair, then that's entirely reasonable. And if somebody treats that as unreasonable, well, that's an unreasonable person. But anyway, let's get into this. I'm creating a campaign for D&D and I want my friends to make their characters beforehand so that I know what they are and so I can plan character-specific things. Good, these are green flags for a game master. But I don't want them to roll their stats without me seeing it. AKA, I want to know their abilities, race, class, but I want to make sure they only roll once for stats so they won't be allowed to do that until we are able to physically meet for the campaign, or beforehand so long as I'm physically able to see it. I'm also having them start at level 15 because it's a one-off campaign. Is this unreasonable? One of my friends is yelling at me saying they don't want to do the campaign anymore if they can't roll for their stats on D&D Beyond during character creation. Help? Yeah, well, that friend, like I said, is being unreasonable. Especially for a one-shot, I feel like you might be caring a little bit too much. I mean, the game is for everybody to have fun, but if you're really worried about balance and you want to know where your characters are at, it's good to know that. I think a healthy compromise would be using something like being all in the same campaign on D&D Beyond, or using Roll20 or a shared dice roller on Discord, or something like that, so that they can roll their stats beforehand, but you still get to see it. Again, I think this whole situation is illustrating a bit of mistrust on both sides, but that might be warranted. I don't know your playgroup, and this one person seems like they're a bit of a tool. If they're causing a big scene about it, it's probably because they want to cheat. So, I don't know. Seems unreasonable. I think it's totally fair to ask your players to roll in front of you. The GM is the only one allowed to fudge dice, even though I don't really stand by that as a concept. I think the dice should be the one thing that is truly random. Everything else you can modulate and homebrew, as it were. But certainly the players shouldn't be allowed to cheat their stats. Next up. Ooh, inter-party conflict. I can forgive and work through various table discord, but not this. DMing for a friend and his wife and 2 kids. He was high pressure in terms of wanting weekly games. I pushed back with telling him I didn't have time for proper prep at once-a-week intervals. He insisted that I could just wing it and he'd be fine. I knew he had a bit of a temper problem and could get rules lawyerish, but he assured me that he'd take the faster, looser style well. But as long as I could DM weekly for him and but the game jonesing was really him. Initial thoughts. Again, this is another unreasonable expectation. You know, the game master is a player and it's important for them to have fun in this. I mean, this is one of those classic things where you're like asking for somebody to GM for you, but you want it because you want a GM, not because you want to play this game with your friends. And for me, that's already a bad sign. I'm assuming it's going to get worse. So I go to his home and give it my best. This derailed on first try when, mid-adventure, I didn't give him the weapon he wanted. Appropriate for his PC's level, but too fancy for the small remote village. I don't yell and scream, but like a baby, a 60-year-old baby, he slams his hand down on the table and storms upstairs. Yes, this is an adult child and you shouldn't be playing with him if you want to enjoy the times when you're playing TTRPGs. the single most important thing to ensure that everybody involved has a fun time is finding the right playgroup. And this is first session telling you that this is not the right playgroup for you. You say, hey man, if you're gonna act like this, I don't have any interest in running for you, so you either gotta keep your shit together or I'm out. And it's okay to drop an ultimatum like that, because if you're going there and you're straight up not having a good time, that's not a good experience for you. And you're the one running, so it should be up to you. Great. The family, wife and 2 older teen kids, don't make eye contact with me, but somehow being simultaneously sheepish and terrified, as if Geezer Baby is going to come back down with a handgun. They drop everything and head upstairs. So I'm alone at the table in his house. I wait. The lights dim, so I pack my stuff. It's not until he hears me walk to the front door that he comes down, goes the long way around the first floor to avoid me on his way back to the game table, gets his phone, no eye contact, no response to my dry good night, just walks back upstairs. So I let myself out. The very next day, he texts me as if nothing happens. When's the next game? I blocked him after that. Details of the dispute are pretty irrelevant. You don't do that to an invited guest in your home. Yeah, I agree. You can ask them to leave, and there's room for later reconciliation after this, but to ghost them face to face? Dude, why? The ghosting is why you're mad? This man literally screamed at you and went upstairs. I guess not coming back and apologizing, that's even further, evidence that he's just not capable of having an adult conversation and having healthy interactions, but yeah, that's a level of dysfunction I don't care to work past. Yeah, I mean, entirely reasonable, and you probably knew this, otherwise why would you post it? Yeah, don't go back to that. It doesn't matter how nicely that person asks, you can be certain that you're not going to enjoy a game with them, and you can just tell them that as a reason. Your behavior made it impossible for me to enjoy that, and I have no interest in running for you again. And that's hard for some people to hear, but that's what you got to do sometimes. At a certain point, it becomes self-preservation, which is important. Also, you don't want your enjoyment of the hobby to be poisoned by toxic people. There's a whole lot of issues here that are so far beyond TTRPGs, but I'm not a licensed psychologist, so I'm just gonna leave that alone. I feel like I'm giving a lot of just human advice and not so much D&D advice, but hey, hope it helps, and if I'm wrong, everybody can come at me in the comments. But thank you so much for watching, and good night, mortals.